All right,
You're on, Casey.
I have to spit my gum out for this. Ready? I'm gonna give you a beatbox. All right, ready?
Should we count you down?
Yep. No, I can actually beatbox.
Let's
But
hear it. You're talking. This is the new thing. You're late for Powerhouse Talk. You got to sing a song. Let's
Let's
I
see
go.
meant
your
to,
8 Mile
I meant to
impression.
say, I meant to say I'll give you a beatbox.
Now I know something about you. You went to Clarebrook. That's a private school. Come on.
Dan, that was the most white boy thing I've ever seen in my life.
I,
Also,
so you're
Blazer.
not. Hold on. You have to sing a song, Casey. You're not getting off the hook.
Okay, give me a beat, Dan.
K-pop Demon Hunters. I know your kids listen to it.
You know
Zoe's
what?
gonna love
No,
this
he
one.
does.
You know what's sad is I heard it was a good show, but Drew won't let the kids watch it because it says the word demon in it.
Casey, a song.
Tim and Julie Harris. I'm so embarrassed. I'm running late because I was stuck at the gate. This podcast is important. That's all I got. My
All
brain's not
right, that's
Not
good.
Now
bad.
Tim's
It's a good
extorting
start.
important.
Well, everyone, welcome back to Powerhouse Talk. Casey didn't know we were actually recording, but that is the official punishment when you're late for the recording, is that you actually have to sing a song to everyone else. So Casey is starting the new tradition of punishment. So there you go. Nice job.
Yeah, well done.
Whether we leave that in or not, I don't know. So we have a really dynamic show for all of you today. And I want to start out by thanking all of you who have subscribed to the newsletter. The newsletter is turning out to be the community where everyone's going to be going to continue the conversation off the podcast. So if you're not yet subscribed to Powerhouse Talk, just go to powerhousetalk.com and subscribe to the newsletter. The links are down below. Very easy. Doesn't cost you anything. Takes 2 seconds. Don't even have to double opt in. And we are the articles that Dan wrote a really great article about talking about Bad Bunny. Casey submitted an article this morning. Julie and I have been cranking out content. So the articles that are on powerhousetalk.com aren't necessarily the same topics we're talking about on the podcast. So just keep that in mind. What we'll do oftentimes is we'll take an idea that we had on the podcast and we'll expand upon it on the newsletter. And then, you guys are responding. It's working out fantastic. And we do have a lot of existing shows. I'm wanting you to all know that we have 5 or 6 podcasts for you to download right away and listen to. So yeah, we're off to the races. All right, we are going to cover at least 2 segments on today's show. But before we do, I want to have Julie go over something that we're seeing in the headlines that I want you guys all to be aware of. And you may have been seeing this the last few days about the January home sales. And so what Julie and I do on our normal podcast and we're doing on Powerhouse is we're breaking down the BS so you guys have the actual facts so that when you're dealing with your buyers and your sellers, you're able to hit them with, the truth opposed to hit them with salacious headlines. Julie Harris?
Yeah, so let's contextualize this a little bit because if you just take the headlines, it sounds like doom and gloom and there's no sales going on and it's all come to a screeching halt. But in fact, all anybody listening would have to do is get into their own MLS and convince themselves that yes, sales are going on because it's the weather, right? So and Tim, you can read the exact headline that you gave me because I've got the wrong screen up right now. It was from CNBC. I mean, it's not just CNBC. Diana Olick had one, but there's been quite a few headlines. I know Housing Wire talked about this as well, that sales slowed dramatically in January. Now, fact
I got
number
it.
one,
You want me to read it,
fact
Jules?
number one, not all sales have even been reported yet from January. Little known fact. Go ahead, Tim.
Jules, it's realtors report a new housing crisis as of January home sales tank 8%. Oh my gosh. We're going to be living in caves again and eating iguanas. There you go.
Exactly. So I have yet to see a headline that states, due to the fact that I think something like 23 out of 50 states were literally frozen shut, impassable roads, blizzards. I think even New Mexico had 31 inches of snow. So
Holy.
probably, unless you absolutely have to buy a house this second, you might put it off for a weekend or two. That's just reality. And I can tell you from my own reporting, from my own one-on-one coaching calls, I had a call yesterday with somebody in Northern Virginia who reported just last weekend more than 100 people through her open house. And yes, of course, the house sold, and it sold with multiple offers and for more than list. So I think, and I said, well, what do you attribute that to? And she said, pent up demand and lower interest rates. I said, has your market actually thawed yet? She said, no, we still have inches of snow and ice on the ground. It's just that finally she feels that there's been a breaking point and now people are pulling the trigger. So I think a lot of this is very regional and even depends. I've had a lot of luxury sales as well reported. So back to you, Tim.
Well, so I mean, the articles that you're going to be seeing out there and your customers are going to be fearful of, or they have no context. All people have been trained
That's
to be
right.
lazy. They read the headline and then they'll read the bullet points. They're supposed to summarize the article, and then you read the article, and oftentimes, especially on CNBC, the article has absolutely no relation whatsoever to the headline. And,
Nothing.
and Julie just nailed it. So she said specifically that a lot of the lack of sales, it's going to bounce back. So all this really means is that you're going to have a bigger spring than you otherwise would have, because there's still more homes for sale. There's still buyers in the marketplace. Interest rates still fell. So I think we've talked through that one. But the point of it is ignore the headlines, look at the facts, and use your own brain, or use our collective brains on Powerhouse Talk. All right, so we have 3 segments today. We'll probably get through 2. And guys, I want you to scroll down on the spreadsheet and see that I put some notes down there for you as well. If you guys go down past the agenda, you'll see I dropped in some notes. So segment 1 is everyone says A players attract A players, but what is that actually? What actually defines an A player in real estate today? And are most teams accidentally built to repel A players, and how to attract and retain A players? And this is relevant for, anybody building a team, anybody building a brokerage. So again, that concept, I think you guys will really wrap your arms around in a second, because the essence of it is, how do you find A players and how do you keep A players? I'm looking forward to hearing what Dan has to say about that, because him and his wife have an enormous team. Segment 2 is, if AI makes every agent's marketing systems, follow up, and lead generation equally elite, what becomes real estate competitive advantage? How does an agent team differentiate themselves? I think that's going to be a great segment. And segment 3 is the fame versus wealth paradox. If most agents say they really want wealth, they want to be rich, and have their money work for them so they no longer have to work for their money, why do they consistently choose behaviors that pursue visibility instead of profitability? In other words, why do 99% of all agents choose to be famous over rich? All right, so guys, let's jump right in. So Casey, welcome to today's show. Dan, and of course, Julie, welcome to today's Powerhouse Talk. Let's start out with segment 1. Dan, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, good. So everyone says A players attract A players, but what is that? What actually defines an A player in your world? Maybe give them a little bit of information about you and Carrie's team. And obviously, how do you go about attracting A players, and how do you go about keeping A players?
I think the biggest indicator if someone is going to be an A player or not, and we've typically carry anywhere from 40 to 50 agents on our team, but the biggest indicators that I've always looked for are, how soon in the process do they mention that they're motivated by money? If they're not motivated by money, and they start telling you, like, I've always been interested in real estate, or had a passion for it, or I've loved watching the HGTV shows, like, those are red flags, right? If they're living in a situation where they don't have to succeed monetarily, like, that's a red flag. Like, these kids that are in their parents' houses and living in the basement and don't really have a desire to get out, that's a red flag. So you want people that are money driven, that have other people that depend on them. And if those things are there, like, they're going to take action, they're going to get their schedules dialed in, they're going to put in the work, and have this internal drive to get better, to improve and succeed. If they're not motivated by money, there's just too many things, roadblocks in the industry, I think, for people that are dabbling in it.
So I wrote down, those are great points. They have to be money driven. They have to they don't have a choice other than to earn money. And essentially the tail end of that one is having obligations, of family, mouths to feed, definitely is going to give you the motivation that you need. I think you guys will all agree. I know you guys will all agree with this. Well, some of the best, like, when asked for career advice, and I don't often get people asking me for life advice, but career advice all the time. And they're in a millennial, and well, really, it's not even millennial anymore. It's Generation Z. I tell them to get married and have children as soon as possible, because they'll never have to be worried about finding their motivation. right? So in their 20s and their early 20s, when everyone else is trying to find themselves and everyone does this delayed, adulthood
Leave the
thing.
basement.
Yeah, exactly. Get married, make babies, then you're going to have mouths to feed, and then you're going to find your why, and you're never going to have to look for it again. Casey Anderson, what are you thinking about that question? You want me to read it again, or you got it in your head?
No, I mean, for me, I mean, I think as far as attracting A players for us, I've noticed an uptick in, more higher producing agents joining my team only because our structure is different. But I think beyond before they even know what our structure is, they're already questioning and asking like how they can be aligned with us because they see that we're putting up real numbers in the market. But at the end of the day, A players, I think, attract A players from showing that you can still have autonomy in your business without having your thumb over them. And I think a lot of people are attracted to, gosh, how do I say this nicely? Um, we're all driven with ego. I think every human is at some point until you kind of wake up and realize like there's a bigger picture. And with the A players in my Florida market, I feel like when you can show flexibility and opportunity to grow, right? And not just to build somebody else's brand and name. We have a different and unique situation where you can grow and have autonomy and still build and scale yourself without having to answer to a team lead or to our brand. And I think for us, like we've been able to attract them because of the environment we have offered and the culture we've created and still giving them a flexible, laxed leash to still have ownership in themselves and their own identity. And so I feel like we've been able to attract quality A player agents because we give autonomy, but at the same time, there's structure if they want it. And most of them still tap into it because I think the real A players are the ones that, like you said, they have structure, they have somebody relying on them to put food on the table. And there
Casey,
is
what you just said, I don't want to go over that. Don't move past that. It's really important. So, like an A player, for example, let's just keep it I think, focus on if you have somebody that's working for you. So an A player that's working for you will identify the problem. And if they can, if they have the authority to, they'll fix the problem. And then they'll tell you about the problem, how they fixed it later. Or maybe they won't. The problem just won't ever have existed. It won't ever have showed up on your list of things to think about. Or if they need your authorization, an A player will basically identify the problem and then bring you three viable solutions, have an opinion as to which one they're thinking is the best one to go with. And then basically they're just waiting for your sign off on it. A B player is going to see the problem, not think of a solution, and a C player is just going to basically put in their time and then go home and watch Netflix. That's essentially what we're looking for. But in the sales world and real estate sales world, what A players want more than anything, and I like how you said it, is they want autonomy. That's really truly what they want. And so, like Dan, well, I'll ask Jules. Jules, if you're coaching one of your clients and they're wanting to add some sales staff and they're trying to attract A players, what would be, for example, one of the best ways to retain them? Let's move to retaining.
Best ways to retain them is, I think all of you guys have said it, to support them, but allow them to be autonomous. Give them the tools, give them the skills, and set them free. But also to hire the right people in the first place. To Dan's point, if they present as saying things like, I'm trying out real estate or we'll see how it goes, versus having a high level of self-motivation, and then you can push them and they like that. I think that's the difference between A players and everybody else is they eat it up. They love that. They want you to push them. They want you to hold them accountable. They have a personal commitment to their own success versus saying, you got to give me leads. You've got to motivate me. People that like would come to a coaching call and say, okay, coach me, versus saying, I have goals of A, B, and C. I want to get there quickly. And I want to work with you. I want to work with your team. I want to work with your organization because I know that you can help me get there faster. But they present to you that way instead of you pulling it out of them.
That's right. I mean, for example, you just had a new guy sign up for coaching, 24 years old, Arizona, and is already selling dozens of, over 20 plus houses per year. And he's essentially just doing
He's very clear about his goals
he
too.
listened to
He's
our
very
podcast,
clear.
but he took action on it. He didn't wait around for someone to, slap him on the back of the head to get him to
Yeah.
take action. So I agree. So let's talk about the retention aspect. Dan, you've got 8 players on your team, you and Carrie do. How are you guys going to retain them? How are you going to keep them over time? Because that is the big bugaboo of anybody building a team. The team churns off. How do you keep them? What's the greatest lever to keep the 8 players aligned with you for their entire careers that you've ever seen in your life?
Well, you have to give them the ability to grow into a vision that may even be bigger than your own and be flexible with it. There's a lot of ways we could talk about that on the sales front, but when you're talking about real wealth, the biggest opportunity to let someone from your team grow into would be revenue share, right? Like, we're one of the few brokerages that has it. And, in that model, if I have a person on my team that's selling hundreds of thousands and wants to go on their own, I'm actually really, really excited because I know they can go out, build a team, build a rev share group, and we can stay in a, financial relationship, business relationship for decades, if not a lifetime. And if you don't have that model, you're basically training your competition, right?
Well,
So
let's
I
so
think,
let's break that let's break that down because probably not everyone's going to know what you're talking about. The essence of it is at eXp Realty, and all of us who are with eXp, you can read about our eXp Realty group down below. There's videos and whatnot to educate you. Or if, of course, you're ready to join eXp and you're looking for a sponsor that's going to be very proactive in your success, all of our individual links are down below as well. So here's what Dan just said, and this is a problem anybody forming a team or frankly a brokerage will always have. You get an A player or even a B player that you mature up to being an A player, and then they want to leave the nest, and it's natural for everyone to want to do that at some point. Okay, an A player is going to always want to leave the nest. They go to a different brokerage. They start their own brokerage. They're with you at, Smith Real Estate. Now they're gone. They've gone over to, Jones Real Estate. You have no relationship with them whatsoever. And all the time and effort you put into them is just essentially just, gone in essence. You have no compounding effect from the fact that you spent all that time making that person into an A player or helping them know that they're an A player. So with eXp Realty, if you have someone, Dan has someone join, or Casey has someone join at their team, so what's going to happen is, let's say that exact scenario happens. They join, they train them up, they're productive, they're selling real estate, they're ready to start on their own. Dan and Carrie or Casey are going to say, God bless you, you're on your way. I'll help you start your own thing. They can go start their own teams because at eXp, they're still in partnership because they're still part of, say, for example, Dan and Carrie's revenue share group. And that's how you not only, I mean, even if you can't keep them on your team, you keep the benefit of having actually helped them to become successful because they get the benefit of their future revenue from revenue share. Hopefully that makes sense. Does that make sense, Julie?
It does, and it is distinctly different about EXP. And I'm glad that you paused to clarify that because I'm not sure that, I am sure that a lot of our listeners have not been exposed to the difference between, like you described earlier, somebody wants to leave the nest and they go to some other brokerage. I've heard agents, it's like they raised them to be successful and you wanted that A player and then they leave the nest. Now they're mad at them for leaving. That doesn't happen at EXP because you're all still part of the same organization. It's just a different,
You and I had
type
that
of
happen
connection.
when we had a real
Yeah.
estate team. We had people leave. They'd become good, in some cases great, and then they would want to go do their own thing because they could make more money. And I was happy for them to an extent, but
To an
at the end
extent.
of the to an extent, but at the end of the day, had EXP, we've been with EXP, not Remax at the time, we would have had the benefit of
Mhm.
continuing to stay in partnership with them. And so that's a big thing.
It's a totally different relationship with that agent because now you know that if whatever happens, as long as they're under that umbrella, the EXP umbrella, you're training with them. That's going to live on a lifetime. That's going to continue to benefit both of you.
So when you
That's
see
totally different.
when you see Casey building this team, I mean, she's been in the business for less than 4 years and she's already a superstar. And she's talking about building her culture. I don't want to speak for you, Casey, but
Yeah.
she's building a culture not just for her specific team, but she's building it for all the teams that she'll spawn as a result of the germination of this, the foundational, what would you say? Foundational step in real
Exactly.
estate. Yeah, exactly. So that's
And
what's
can I
cool.
say this on that? One thing that I think is very important, every conversation that I have with every agent that comes in our office is the first thing that comes out of my mouth is like, hey, I want you to understand essentially the different, paths that can come for you once you say yes to joining us in our network. And that's this. Number one, you can join Coastal Realm, right? And have access to team stuff and different structures. Number two, if you want to join as an individual agent and you still want access to my office and our, Monday meetings and trainings, and of course, everything that you guys offer in our network, you can have that and still have your full autonomy and build your own self. You don't have to brand Coastal Realm. But, if there comes a time where you want to join Coastal Realm as an agent just in our team right now, but goals and dreams to build your own team down the road. I want you to know, I'm going to give you the blueprint of how I built my team, what I did, how I did it, and you're still going to have full access to our office and the support from our trainings every Monday and Wednesday. And, I want that for agents because I know the pride and joy that I have from having my own team and being able to like peace out, go be with my kids, not ever miss an event, and just kind of be the boss. And that's a luxury and that's exciting. But it's also not for everybody. Some people look at me like, oh, heck no, I hate people. I would never want to do that. Some people are like, yeah, I do have that goal and I have that vision down the road. Great. Let's figure out like your next goal for the year, 2 years. Like, what's that timeline look like? So I can start sharpening you and building you up for that next step. And I think it's important for us as leaders to verbalize because that's healthy. It's healthy for a leader to say, hey, if these are your dreams, I don't want to smash it. We're not in competition, we're in collaboration. And that's the beautiful thing of why I'm here with EXP. I
So,
just
so
think
you're meeting with someone, Casey, you're saying right out of the gates, I know probably there's going to be another path that you're going to want to take, and we don't need to make this so that it's a monster hiding in the closet that one day surprises me. I know most likely you're going to be going in that direction, and I'm here to support you as you mature in the industry. That's what I'm hearing you say.
it's the first thing that comes out of my mouth. And I straight
Awesome.
up ask them, like, do you have a desire to build a team? Like, if you do, jump in the car with me, shadow me, listen to these conversations, look at how I'm prepping things behind the scenes. So, like, I can start sharpening you because you might be a different leader and agents might be attracted to your style differently than I might be. And down the road, at the end of the day, like, that's a win for the brokerage. And
Let me
so, if
let
I
me let me give
serve
you
it,
a juxtaposition to that. So when Julie and I, we were with Remax. So when we were with Remax, we would intentionally not cross train because we didn't want to train our competition. We would train someone to be a listing specialist, a buyer specialist, someone to be a transaction coordinator, those types of things. But we definitely wouldn't let them do each cross trained because then you're essentially training your competition. And you know what? We were right because all the people that basically we saw our competition of other teams who would start to grow, have their agents mature, leave, and then guess what? They become their main competition, oftentimes competing for their centers of influence and past clients. But under the EXP model, if I were forming a team right now, I'd do it just the exact way that you and Dan are doing it. I wouldn't even think twice about training them up because you can stay, you have the motivation to train them up, motivation to help them be business builders. And then in some degree, you have the motivation to help them literally leave and go start their own business. And that's completely different in real estate. Dan, are there any other models that are out there like that in the brokerage space? I don't think there are.
Not to the extent and the size of EXP. I mean, 85,000 agents, 30 plus countries, like I'm probably going to recruit a few agents. I was just telling you before the podcast in South Africa now, right? So like we just have so much more than any of the other copycats or whatever name you want to give them. And there are more models every day coming out like EXP, but once you're Facebook, once you're Amazon, once you're Netflix, it's hard to come in and disrupt that large network.
Exactly. Oh, you know what? Speaking of traveling, we should have said Orlando is in Spain. Chris Heller is on his way to Mexico City. That's the reason we're not on the show today. So sorry for not saying that a bit ago. All right. If you guys have any other trailing thoughts on this, or you want to move to the next segment? All right. Next segment. If AI makes every agent's marketing systems, follow up, and lead generation equally elite, I should have thrown branding in there too. What becomes a real competitive advantage? How does an agent team differentiate themselves? And I think this is the heart of where agents are underestimated. When agents say AI is going to be essentially a tool in my toolbox, personally, I think they're 100% completely missing actually the power of what AI is truly going to do. But I'm going to start out with Julie because she and I have been talking about this obsessively. And by the way, she didn't originally agree with my stance. I think if I got her 90% sold on my view on what AI is going to do in real estate. So Julie, if AI makes every agent essentially all their USPs, unique selling propositions, if they're all the same, all done at the highest levels, because that is what's going to happen. And ultimately an agent has to say, differentiate themselves how they're going to do it.
It's going to be 100% interpersonal skills. Okay. So the AI will be able to handle probably from, if a transaction has, if we're being honest, let's say 100 things that happen from beginning to end, from the second it's a lead to the second it closes, all of these things, appraisal, inspection, negotiating, finding the house, selling the house, all these things. AI will be able to handle it from here to here, but the front end and the back end are going to be the most important thing to be a strategic advisor. Okay. So, an example that came out on a coaching call yesterday, where an agent was telling me why she decided to price a house a little bit higher, is because she had boots on the ground, specific experience, not just with the neighborhood and what side of the street it was on, but with the model. And she had been through the competition and who said they were remodeled but weren't really remodeled because it was a terrible job. All of those types of strategic boots on the ground, hyper local experience is going to make a huge difference. Think about the difference between your standard issue travel agent versus travel agents now that are super bespoke, high end, luxury, high touch, high feel. You wouldn't think of going even to ChatGPT to plan your travel because you can shoot them a message and they'll be like, I got that. And you trust them because you know them and you've got that, real life experience. So that's part of it, but I'll stop talking so somebody else can.
Dan?
I think the differentiator will be who effectively uses AI the best to buy back their time to spend more activities, as Julie said, on the front end and the back end, right? So I think a lot of agents are going to use Chat GPT, like advanced
Can
Google
I interrupt
search.
you?
And
So, I'm
yeah,
sorry. When you said front end, because I'm trying to help them understand, you mean the formation of the relationship and doing more interpersonal, to Julie's point, contact in real life, doing actual human things, because that's the only place, that's the only sacred ground AI is going to leave us. And then on the back end, after the transaction closes, or even during the transaction, keeping that high human touch that AI is going to be able to emulate at a high level, but it's not going to be the same as hearing from, say, for example, Casey. Did I summarize those two things you said?
Yeah.
yeah, I think proactive lead generation, that's what I meant by the front end. And the
Oh,
back end, like knowing those things when you're talking to a seller or a buyer that these large language models just aren't going to know. Like, they don't, there's no way ChatGPT will ever know if that remodeled home was actually remodeled in a really crappy way, right? So it's getting more time to be able to proactively lead generate and develop that local expertise for talking to buyers and sellers. So
proactively lead generate, meaning literally picking up the phone or going in real life, having conversations with the prospective buyers and sellers. That's what you're talking about.
yeah, picking up the phone, networking, one on like DMing people so that they actually respond, right? So it's like a two-way conversation. So having two-way conversations, however you can generate those.
So real human contact will become that will be perceived as something special because everyone will be assuming that you're talking with AI. Like when I have someone text me because they're interested in joining with Julie and I at eXp Realty, they always ask if it's AI. And you know what I respond? I wish this was AI so I wouldn't have to talk to you. I do that as a joke. But seriously, no, it's never AI when you text me. But once there is really good AI, that aside, I'm in fantasy land right now. But the point of it is that if that's where the value is going to be, it goes back to what Julie said about interpersonal. But I really want you guys to drill down on this one particular topic because this is where agents are confused. Um, Everybody and their dog is telling agents to build a brand. Everybody and their dog is telling agents to basically build funnels, build big CR, build CRM, build drip campaign, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Everyone is asking agents to actually trying to make themselves into what amounts to be a real estate influencer. But again, the way I posed that question was, and I want you guys to internalize this and really drill down on it with me, is if everybody has elite level, high level marketing, branding, videos, social media, you can do an AI based podcast on wherever the hell you want to do it on. All the digital is done automatically for you. In other words, you're going to wake up and you're going to have CloudBot have built essentially your entire day. Knows that Casey wants to spit out 5 or 6 different social posts a day, a bunch of videos, a bunch of it's going to do it all for her, and she doesn't have. And literally, it's going to be Casey doing Casey as an AI, and no one's going to know the difference. When everybody's going to have access to that, because everybody will have access to that. I want you guys to tell me, aside from interpersonal communication, knowing how to communicate with people, being comfortable getting away from your keyboard, I mean, I don't see where that's going to leave all these agents that have never really learned to do anything other than what I just said. They're kind of out to sea, aren't they? Casey, what are you thinking?
Well, I I told you I just won a listing up against 7 agents 2 weeks ago. And the thing that really stood out to me from the seller, I asked him, well, what was the reason? Like, why did you choose me? Like, I understand that you did, and I'm grateful for that, but what was it that separated me from the other seven agents? And because we all, we did the same dance, we sang the same song, this is what we offer, this is what
No,
we
she means
do.
that literally on TikTok, by the way. She's not just joking.
Yeah, no, I literally was like doing my two-step on TikTok. But the thing is this. At the end of the day, what makes you different and what gives you the true competitive advantage when you drown all this other noise out from AI is your stats. And AI can't make up stats legally, right? In real estate world. You've got to be factual and on your game with actually marketing your closed sales, representing seller and buyer, and being able to be factual, right? And providing proof of that and showcasing that. So I would love to encourage any agent that's listening to say this. Focus on your stats. Focus on your reps. Focus on getting things closed and focus on providing that sheet of like, hey, here, Mr. Seller, this is all of my closings. These are the ones I represented, buyer and seller. This is something AI can't buy you. This is not something some glossy print shop can't buy you, right? Like we can all look polished and cool but it's the agent that's going to show up and actually bring you the buyer and actually understand what market that we're supposed to be marketing to and what zip code we should be sending mailers to. While ChatGPT can probably provide those zip codes, it's actually being able to communicate and convert those buyers and sellers and bring them in the door for you and show the stats. And
But
so at
Casey, the question you asked, sorry for interrupting you, because you say a lot of good things, but you say it conversationally. I want to pull it out just for the sake of the listeners, okay? Or the viewers. The very first thing that you said was something that no agent would ever ask, or very few would ask. Mr. Seller, why did you choose me?
yeah,
That's
and I think
why.
that's
Julie
important.
agrees. But that's the most important thing. But you've got to ask that question also if you ever lose, which I know you never do. Mr. Seller, why didn't you choose me? Because you learn both ways. But in both scenarios, an agent's never going to ask that question because they're not skills based enough to know how to basically handle either answer. Really, that's the essence of it. And from that
Yeah.
spawns honest conversation, right? I mean, that's what you're describing.
Yeah. And honest feedback. Like you guys, when you muster up the strength to say, hey, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, why did you choose me? It's not a bad thing to ask that question. It's not you questioning your confidence or wondering like, why, like, why they choose you, or you should know why they choose you. I
Yep.
think it's important for the seller to repeat why they chose you and also to remind you like, hey, it came back to my stats. My proof was in the pudding. I outworked the other agent, even though the presentations, they were competitive.
You know what
Some
you
of
just
them,
said there that was genius? You just did it again. You make them repeat why they hired you.
yeah.
That was
No,
genius. They're saying it back, so they're reselling themselves on you by asking them to, because they're not just going to say we hired you because your stats. They're going to say a whole bunch of stuff, which is really powerful. And you know what would be maybe advanced player mode is just saying, I really appreciate that. That was nice. I'm going to remember all that. By the way, do you know of anyone who's thinking about selling that I should be helping in this market?
yeah, but
Who
don't
do
ask
you
that
know?
question until after they sign the listing agreement.
Oh, 100%.
Amen to that. Yes, and good for you for asking when you win. And I also have to say it's important for our listeners when, if, in Casey's case, not very often, but when you don't win, why did they choose the other agent? What was it in that situation? Because in my experience, especially as agents are coming up and learning, it's very unusual that it's for the reason that you think.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Have you asked that question? And have either of you asked that question? Julie and I used to ask that. Well, I mean, yeah, we'd ask. I'll answer it first. Okay. So I remember when I go on a listing appointment, and this only happened, it probably happened twice in reality. I'll say it only happened once, but it probably happened twice. I'm a slow learner. So I said, why did you hire me and somebody else, or why did you hire the other person? And they'd always say, because they asked for the business. Those are I heard that at least
That
once,
was
but
an early lesson.
right. They asked for the business. And I was like, okay, so like, what does that mean? They just asked me to sign the contract, to which then I realized that was a dumb mistake for me not to have done because I was just maybe being assumptive or didn't want to be perceived as pushy. And the other person was, and they got it. So have you guys, when you guys have not won, have you, a listing in particular, have you asked why you didn't get the listing, Dan?
I always ask why, and then based on their answer, I try to win it at that point. So I
For example,
never. Yeah, the two buckets that have come up a lot for us is, sometimes we'd get, oh, the other agent has more experience, or the other agent has more experience in this zip code, right? Because, we sell
Everywhere.
all over, a pretty big area. So I'll get that bucket. And then sometimes when you run a large team, the one we'll get is, oh, Sally's, we know she doesn't sell as many homes as you guys,
You're
but
too busy.
I'm not going to be just a number to her. So
Yep.
they typically fall in those two buckets.
Do you want me to give you a script for the second one?
Sure.
Mr. Seller, listen, I appreciate, and you have to say this before they give you the objection, right? Mr. Seller, listen, I just want you to know I do have a large team, but the team is there to support me so I can focus all my best energies on you. So, in other words, I'm not going to delegate you to somebody that you're not comfortable or familiar with. Your point person throughout the whole transaction, your go-to is going to be me. So yes, I have a team, but no, you're never going to feel like you've been delegated and you don't know where the heck I am. There's never going to be a Where's Waldo scenario in our relationship. So please be clear about that. And the very fact that I can focus all my energies, all my best energies on you is because I have the team that's taking care of all the minutia, is because I don't have to make the flyers and pound the signs. I can focus on getting your home sold. Do you see how or I'm sure you'll agree that's an advantage to you, right? Something along those
Yes.
lines. Yes, exactly. Sign the contract, please. See, I learned that from when I didn't get it. Casey, what are you thinking? Like when you haven't gotten one, have you asked?
Yes, I have asked, and I always I like to make sure I'm like stressing to them that I'm shocked. Like,
How you
hey,
do it?
what? I'm shocked. This is literally what I say. Hey, Mr. Jones, how are you? I gotta say, I'm shocked. I was like really feeling a vibe here. Like I would love to know what was it that was different about the other agent that made you pull the trigger and sign with them over me, just so I know, because I would love to know, what can I sharpen and what opportunities are out there for me to learn or educate or,
What do you hear? What do you
and
hear?
I
What do they
hear,
say?
what I hear? You know what? This person offered 1%. This
Ah,
person offered
right.
1 point.
So I'm
And
sorry, you guys are putting me into coaching mode. So you should have held
Good to know.
you should
Yeah.
have dealt with the commission thing in your pre-listing pack so that somebody couldn't buy the listing from you, right?
but you know what? At the same time, when I've been trying to be very firm about not going at least below 2%. Because I straight up say like, look, you, of course, can pay for the 1%, the 1.5, whatever, all those people out there. But I can assure you, they're not, and I am saying this up front, they're not going to be opening the door for every showing. They're going to slap a lockbox on there, and hopefully they turn your electric off and make sure no water is running every single time a buyer's agent comes in and out. But beyond that, we show up, we show it every time. I'll spare you of all the hoopla I say to them. But essentially, it comes back to, oh, well, they did it for less, or they were willing to bend more on their fees or whatever. And I say, you know what? Well, no matter what, I want you to know this. I love your property. Obviously, I spent a lot of time there. I could answer every question about the property. If you ask me any question about your property stats of that property, I can tell you right now without having to look it up. So here's what I'm going to say to you. When that's listed and it's live, I'm still going to do my very best to bring the buyer for you and market it as long as that broker allows it. And when or if it doesn't sell, which for your case, I hope and pray that it does, because I want your family to be financially successful and have your generational wealth. Um, I want you to call me first because Mr. Jones, you get what you pay for. So if it doesn't work out, I know you're going to call me, and then we'll do it the right way and sell it for probably more money than you listed it for, and we'll get it done eventually. And I feel confident in that. And then you
Julie,
know what's crazy? The people that don't sell with the 1.5% agents, they not only call us back, they cancel. They will cancel the listing with that other agent and then still try to hire us. And I say, hey, listen, I'm ethical. I want to make sure we're running things like and not bending the rules. I need proof that this was like executed and withdrawn, like because
it's
I
because you
don't mess
called. It's because you called. That's why most agents would just take the loss and they just move on. Julie, can you role play with me?
Sure.
Okay, so you're going to be in Casey's scenario, right? And I loved
Mhm.
what you said. Hold on, I got to turn something off. So here's the scenario. You're going to have a seller that's basically same scenario that Casey just said, who's thinking about maybe they're going to go in a different direction because the agent is going to cut the commission. You're the
Yep.
seller. Okay. I'll make it easy on you. So
Sure.
Julie, listen, I appreciate the fact that you're thinking about listing with a discount limited service broker. Can you tell me why you think that's an advantage to you? Help me understand why you think that's an advantage to you.
Well, I mean, it's really important that we have maximum dollars in our pocket.
Sure, I completely understand. So your thinking is that if you hire a broker that charges you less, you're going to net less. Is that what you're thinking? Or you're going to
Sure.
net more, you're going to make more. Okay.
Right. I
I,
spend less, I should end up with more.
okay. So let me ask you a question. If I could
Mhm.
show you that when you list your house with me today, that I'll net you significantly more, the same, if not significantly more than listing with the discount broker, would you still want to list with a limited service broker?
Not if you can show me that you can net me more.
Right. Have you seen the other brokers' statistics, their actual time on the market, their days on the market, their list sell price ratio? Have you gotten any? Did you
No,
check
they
to
didn't
see?
really share that. They just said that they'd save me money by charging me less.
I see. So the sales through rate that the other broker had, you didn't see like for every, 5 houses they list, how many they actually sell. Did you check that out?
No, it didn't really come up.
Okay. So when you're listing your house, Julie, just so that I'm clear, obviously net matters, but what else matters to you? What are the other things that matter? That matters maybe more than net, because without this first thing, you have no net to look forward to. What would that be? Getting the house
Well,
sold?
I'd like it to sell quickly. I mean,
Exactly.
keeping it isn't really an option. We've got to sell this thing. So,
All right.
you know,
So
I guess the timing.
I'm sure you'll agree it just makes sense that we compare apples to apples and you look at my statistics versus their statistics. And that way you can make a logical decision. Because oftentimes I think this just makes sense that when something is on sale and something is a discount, it's because you're receiving less, right?
Well, I hadn't looked at it that way, but I suppose that might be true.
So the less we don't want you to be receiving in this scenario is net to you, correct?
Right, right.
All right. So
Mhm.
let's look at the numbers. So,
Okay, we were reading each other's minds there for a second because as Casey was talking and everything that you do, and I appreciate all of the things that you were talking about, Casey, what Tim was doing with the role play was comparing apples to apples and going to ratios and numbers, which was your earlier point about agents are going to win when they can highlight their numbers. So, would you, both you and Dan, I'm almost certain, have a higher list to sell price ratio? You net your sellers more. I'm almost guaranteed you guys net your sellers more statistically if you take all of your sales and put them in a bucket and you compare that to the average agent. And by the way, I'm sorry, you guys have triggered us into coaching mode here,
I
but
just wrote this
everybody
in
who's
chat.
not
Let's not get into
you,
coaching mode.
I know. Everybody who's not you is the ordinary agent. I don't care if they're the biggest name ever. So you compare that and you just show them you're going to net more. So you're using your stats. So I'll shut off coaching mode.
Right. Exactly. It's
Can I say
impossible for us.
something really quick too that I
Yes, of
love to
course.
say? I love what you said about just showcasing like the stats and the ratios of like listing to sales and getting it actually across the closing line. But beyond that, the other thing that I always say that's really important is tallying up what their overhead cost is to keep that property and obviously what their motivation is. And almost encouraging them to do without talking crap because let me just say
Right.
this. The biggest thing I can say in agents in Florida market is the moment you start talking crap about another agent and like kind of dissing them, but like still trying to stay classy, like in my opinion, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot and you're gonna just sound like kind of trashy and tasteless to the client, and they're gonna be able to sniff it out if you're throwing like, little undermining daggers at the other agent. So keep it really polished and classy and don't bring up the other agent's names or say this, hey, Mr. Seller, like listen. The one thing I want to encourage you with is I'm going to send you a sheet of my listings, days on markets, how many price reductions we had to have in each listing in the last 60 days or whatever, 50 closings that we've had. And I want you to I want you to compare those stats with the other agents you're interviewing. And I would encourage you, Mr. Jones or whatever, Mr. Jones, Mr. Seller, to go back to your other agents that you're interviewing before you sign that dotted line and compare just the ratio and the overhead. Because if you and Mrs. Jones have the means and the financial, um, you know, backing to have a mortgage for the next 4 to 5 months, only to have price reduction after price reduction, and you're missing, the
Casey,
large net.
that's a really genius point you're saying there. I want to say this again and reframe it because I love what you're saying. You're saying there's a cost to keeping the house on the market with the wrong agent, and you need to be taking that into consideration because it could mean that you're keeping the house and making the payment, paying for the upkeep for another 2 or 3 months that you would otherwise have been able to put that money towards, say, for example, moving costs or new furniture or a pool table or wherever the heck you want to pay for it. That's very, very clever. I love that. Dan, what are
And
you
this is
thinking?
where you can compare your
Uh,
days on the market versus average because you have
But
those
then
numbers.
you compare your listing price or and not listing price, you compare your compensation too. Because when you look at that, your compensation actually saves them money, even if they agreed to your 3% rather than their 1% and the amount of overhead costs that they end up having to pay.
Well, putting it back together, Dan, sorry, let me just summarize this. So what you're doing is, Mr. Seller, what matters more? How much I'm charging or how much you're making? What matters more, the size of the check or the wire transfer that you receive or the amount of commission I receive? In other words, if your wire transfer or check meets or exceeds your expectations, all of your needs are taken care of from that transfer, that amount of money you make from the sale of the house. Do you really care what I make? I mean, you don't, right? Who cares what I make as long as you're accomplishing your goal, right? That's essentially it. Dan, what are you thinking?
yeah, I love comparing stats. If I find out ahead of the listing appointment who they're interviewing, I'll research them ahead of time. The other technique script I think we should mention, it's a classic one, right? Is Mr. Seller, you'd agree that, when you hire someone to sell your home, it would be really important to have a strong negotiator, correct? Yes. Well, I'm a little confused then, why you'd want to enter the relationship by going with the person that didn't negotiate successfully for their own value and still expect them to go out and do a good job of that for you.
That's a
Boom.
great.
That is a
I
great
love
one.
that.
Well,
Like
And
so
the
by
wow.
the way, let me take this back to the original question, which was about AI. What of all of those conversations
exactly.
can you imagine an AI agent doing and getting the same result as any of you guys?
I have a better question. Imagine how amazing it would be if AI could do it better than we are, so
Well,
we don't have
yes,
to do it anymore. Right? We just put our AI Casey out there, up, dip, 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 and
yes.
Casey can go
But
play with her
meanwhile,
kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
true.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So I think that's a summary of that one. Let's move. You guys have time for another point, another question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay. All right. So fame versus wealth paradox. If most agents say they want wealth and they want to be rich, and this goes similar to the previous topics, where their money works for them, they no longer have to work for their money. That's basically what the definition of rich is. Why do they consistently choose behaviors that pursue visibility, fame, instead of profitability? In other words, why do 99.99% of all agents choose, despite what they say, based on their actions, to be famous over rich? Casey, I'm going to pick on you first.
I think it's easier to fake it. And then I also think like people see the polished side of social media. I know agents in our market, not just agents, any entrepreneur really that chase fame, right? And like you and I, we've had this conversation a couple times before. Like we've seen other real estate celebs, in our markets and on Netflix and, Instagram. And it's easy to gravitate towards them and look at, oh, look at all this stuff they have. And it can't be that hard. I can easily do all those things and I can easily flash this and do that. And at the end of the day, it's really hard for people to swallow their pride and say like, "Hey, you have to roll up your sleeves. You have to work hard and actually like enjoy looking at your bank account, looking at the profit that you're making and don't be a victim of the fake flashiness of social because at the end of the day, none of that is going to fulfill you. None of that is going to actually give you the financial freedom and generational wealth. And you really will be working until you're 70, going out putting signs in the ground if you don't do it the right way and have the right people in your corner, mentoring you and helping you swallow your pride. And so
Were you ever attracted? Were you ever being manipulated by your ego, where people were trying to convince Casey Anderson? I'm going to try not to have you actually talk about something I know you don't want to talk about some recent TV star that tried to recruit you. But the reality of it was, through that process, you learned a lot about how they try or how the industry tries to manipulate agents through ego, and you circled back. Do you mind talking about that journey? And you can drop names if you want to.
yeah, and there's actually two of them from two different brokerages. But the thing is, they also can see talent. So like first things first, if you're an agent that's being recruited and like they're, stroking your ego and pumping your brain up with compliments and you're this, you're a star, you're so polished on social, you do even more if you're under my thumb and all that stuff. All that it, gives you a little quick increase in dopamine and makes you feel good, but it should make you take a step back and pause and say, they're reaching out to you because what do all the millennials say? You're a baddie, right? I hate saying that word, but you're a baddie. So you should stop and take a second to say, okay, I have enough value that I'm putting out there where I'm attracting these people that are inflating your ego and wanting you to be under their thumb because they're looking at you not only as somebody that's successful, but you're only going to elevate that other person
Well,
more than they care
sure.
about you elevating yourself.
But the thing about you that's unusual for somebody who's your age, respectfully, I say that, is that you weren't manipulated by your ego. And this person in particular, who rolled out the red carpet and you appear on his TV show, from what I understand, you were able to say no because you stayed in alignment with your highest and truest purpose. As a compliment, I give this to you, Miss Anderson, Mrs. Anderson, is
But I
because,
was attracted to it for 5 minutes. Think about that. I
yeah,
thought about it for 5 minutes. I did.
what do you
I
mean?
did fall into the trap for 5 minutes of thinking, oh, wow, could this be better than what I'm doing? Like, could this be
But you
like,
explored it, Casey. You went out. The point, Dan, you know where I'm getting at with all of this, because you and I have had these conversations too. So why is it, and Casey, we'll go back to you because I want your insight from somebody who's from a different generation than Dan. But Dan, seriously, well, Dan, let me ask you a more specific question, okay? So when you were younger, when you were Casey's age at 30, and because right now you're in your mid 40s, right? So were you more easily motivated from wanting to have recognition and fame than you are now? Has your desire for recognition and fame changed over time?
No, it's probably been more money based, and still is. I
So
think
you
I've been
never
pretty
wanted to be
steady in
famous. There
that.
was never a time when you actually wanted to be on stage. You've been on tons of stages. There had to have been a time where that was a real sugar high for you.
Not really.
like
It's just
Dan's a computer?
business.
Like, Dan's brain is just different.
That's
Here's
funny.
here's my observation. I think most of the people that are I'll use air quotes here if you're listening. I'm making air quotes, but like Instagram or YouTube famous in the real estate industry, they didn't actually go out and build their buyer and seller business that way. The vast majority of them, I'd say 90% of them, did it through networking, cold calling, door knocking, other methods, and then they go out, right? They've got that business locked in and they build an audience.
So you're saying they're
And
lying.
I'm not saying they're lying. What I'm
No, but
saying,
you did. They
Buy
are.
followers too. Think about
Yeah,
all the people that buy
it's all
I'm not
followers.
fake.
saying they're lying.
Well, okay, I'll say
I'm
they're
just
lying
saying that
because if
they
you
go out
build,
and build content that attracts real estate agents. You look at their following, it's probably 90% real estate agents, not buyers and sellers. And then other agents see that and think, oh, I'll duplicate that content. And guess what? Now they've got more realtors following. So it can be helpful if you're trying to build a brokerage or coaching business, a revenue share group. But I don't see big Instagram YouTube famous people that are like driving buyer and seller leads in mass in a duplicatable way.
Casey, can you tell when you're talking to somebody whether they've actually been there and done that? I mean, you were an athlete, like a kick-ass athlete, right? So is there a difference to you when you're listening to somebody, whether like I mean, I'm trying not to go and be too harsh, but there's so many people in the industry that are real estate influencers that are 100% fake. They never sold real estate. If they sold real estate, they didn't do it at a high level, but they're good hype machines on social. But the people that are listening to them and following them for their advice, they're not actually qualifying whether that person is worthy of listening to based on their own actual experience in real estate. So what I'm asking you is someone's actual real world and experience in real estate important qualifier for you to determine whether or not you're going to listen to them for advice about building a real estate business?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think again, like it's so easy to fall into the trap of what we're talking about, of like we
Right.
see it on social, but everybody has to know just how fake social media is, right? And you need to go do your own homework. You need to go look up their sales. You need to go look up their Google reviews. My first biggest red flag of anybody, and you guys might disagree with me, and I'm sorry, but do you realize how many agents don't even have a Google business profile? Do you guys even know that? They have a Zillow profile, they have a Redfin and Realtor.com profile. They don't have an actual business. They don't have an actual page that they have a EIN number linked to go actually put in the work and show that you have a real business and
Yes,
that
well, they
you,
have a lot of TikTok followers, Casey.
yeah, but that doesn't matter. And like
Are you
all
sure?
that would be
All right,
cool,
let's all
but
do it.
we're
Let's do
talking
a
nothing.
dance.
Like it's great,
Tim, I
right?
want to see more thirst trap videos from you.
Don't know
That's
what that
another
is
thing.
either.
That's
Thank
another
God.
thing. Can I just say this? The thirst trap videos and using your body to like get business, guess what? You're gonna get wrinkly and old and fat. Hopefully not fat, but you're gonna get wrinkly one day and the Botox won't work. And the only thing that's going to showcase your skills is your actual facts and stats of what you're doing and the brain that's inside your head, not the fake body that we all keep trying to portray to get business. And it's
Let me do a tail end on that. Before you get fat and wrinkly, have earned enough money, net profit, and from revenue share that you no longer have to sell real estate. That's actually a good motivation for you to get your act together before it's too
yeah.
late. So I agree. The filters can only
Before they
go
won't
so.
operate on you on a table.
Thanks,
But like
exactly.
it's just I just want to this is bottom line. I'm not trying to talk crap. Here's my encouragement to any agent, boy, girl, anything. Like I I think it's easy for us to be a victim of like, oh, look what they're doing. This is amazing. Look how many followers the amount of people that say to me, "Do you see how many followers they have?" And I'm like, "How much money do they have? Do they have a Google business page? Do they actually have an operating business that stands for itself and their reputation?
How
Like,
many
do
listings do they have? How many,
right?
how many, like how many listings do they have? How many closings do they have next? But most importantly, Casey, and I know you focus on this. By the way, guys, if you like this conversation, which you all do, especially if you're in production, you're probably feeling yourself being torn two different ways because so much out there is trying to encourage you to be an influencer. You are being manipulated, to Casey's point, for someone else's means. You are being manipulated to think, act, and spend money on things because it benefits somebody else. Here's the real litmus test: your net profit. And is whatever the thing is that they're trying to get you to do is about building your brand, yuck, or is it actually about doing a transaction? So before you listen to anybody about buying something from them, listening to them for advice, you need to ask these four questions. I'm going to go through these filters and you guys hold me accountable if you don't like these four filters. Number one, have they sold real estate before? If they've never sold real estate before, what do you guys think? Next. Number two, if they sold real estate, did they sell at least 100 houses in a year? Okay, that's good. But maybe they listed a subdivision. Maybe their uncle Bob listed a soybean farm and it got subdivided and they got 100 sales from that. All right, that's something. But number three, these are filters. Did they sell at least 100 houses per year for at least 5 years in a row? Now you've got somebody that actually has proven their ability to be productive. Now you can adjust the 100, but don't adjust it too much. You got to hold whoever you're going to be listening to accountable to actually having done it at the highest level. This frustrates me because so many of you guys are burning yourselves out in real estate and failing because you're listening to people you shouldn't be listening to in the first place. And the only people that hate that I say what I do what I just said are the ones that know it's the truth, and they're the ones that are trying to fool you into believing that they're experts when they're really the only thing they might be expert as is selling you into the belief that they're an expert. And the fourth filter, and this is really important, is have they actually performed at least 100,000 paid coaching calls. Now, you can be a very good leader, Casey and Dan, not done 100,000 coaching calls, but you got to understand performing at a high level, selling real estate, building a team, and then teaching other people how to do it, not the same skill. But when you join with us at EXP, when you join our Libertas group, you get all of it because you do get access to our coaching program. And by the way, Julie and I and all of our coaches have all passed through all four of those filters. What are you guys thinking?
I'm thinking, what are you waiting for, guys?
Let's
Like,
go. Julie, what are
yeah.
you thinking?
I was thinking about a call I had with one of my new, probably youngest new coaching clients. And he said, "Is it okay with you if I just stay off of social media? Because I want to know if I can get his goal is to get to 1 million GCI." Okay. He said, "Can I do that if I just he's like, I just don't like it. I don't look at it. I don't participate in it, and it's not my jam. And I
He said
said,
he'd
a
fire
hundred
you.
percent, yes, of course.
He said he'd fire you if you told him to do a TikTok video jokingly.
Oh yeah, he no, I told him, I said, if I ever ask you to do a TikTok video for the sake of lead generation, you can fire me on the spot. And but I think that he was legitimately asking, do you think I can do it if I don't do it on social media?
Do
Now,
you
this
think
is somebody who is already over phone fear. He's not afraid to talk to people. He's coming in a place of learning, all of the things. So yeah, of course, it is not a prerequisite to success.
let's reel this in. So the future agent, the future top producing agent, and this is something I wrote down in our notes, isn't the best marketer. It's the best interpreter of complexity to the client and the best communicator. Do you guys agree with that statement? Is that a good summary of today's show?
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
So social, there's proactive lead generation. Dan, what's proactive lead generation?
That would be picking up the phone, calling someone, networking, and I would consider a two-way text or DM conversation as well. I mean, if it's just one way and they never respond, like don't count that. And I would prioritize that after the first two, like networking and picking up the
So,
phone.
so for example, Casey's video that she showed us last week, where she was essentially sending a quick video to an expired seller, and the seller called her right away. By the way, what happened to that listing, Casey?
Next Thursday.
All right,
Highlight
so
tomorrow.
that's proactive lead generation. Okay, so but anything where you're communicating, that's proactive. That's maybe 1 degree separation from real true proactive. Real true proactive is person to person, belly to belly, voice to voice. All right, so if I'm going to make this statement and you guys decide and argue with me if you don't agree. So if you have to choose between doing proactive lead generation and passive lead generation, which is everything else, if you have to choose between doing one or the other, you choose the proactive lead generation because it's going to put you in the position to help the most people and make the most money the quickest. And you can completely forget about the passive. Agree or disagree?
I 100% agree, but
I agree. And I just want to reiterate to agents out there when you're, looking at brokerages to join or coaches to hire, like really do your research on those questions that Tim asked. Like, and people will be very manipulative and tricky. Like I know someone that, went to a brokerage, wanted to bring other people with them there. This agent was on a team for 10 years and, made this video about how the old team leader and broker said they'll never make it on their own. And then boom, I sold 100 million homes. Well, what that video didn't convey was that 100 million in sales was over 10 years using another team leader's leads.
Yep.
But the average person who doesn't do their research is like, oh wow, I should join them and be a part of their rev share group or this or that. So like those kind of people are out there and you really have to do your homework.
Well, exactly. And there was a person in the, I look, I don't want to stick with Casey's. She set the bar that we're not allowed to basically pick on other people, even if it's very tempting. But again, I'll reiterate, make sure you're actually, don't just trust, I hate to say it, but these are real words. Don't just trust people based on their claims, make them prove it. Again, to Casey's point, Dan's point earlier, look at their numbers, look at their facts, look at the stats, who you align with, who you partner with, who you listen to, what you watch is your environment. And if you cannot control your environment, the people that are influencing you, you are toast. I think toast is a millennial word, isn't it?
I don't think so.
cooked. You're cooked.
You're cooked.
Cook. No, no, that's not that one. Never mind.
Brain rot.
Brain
Julie,
rot. Well,
what did Zoe teach us the new word for slay is? What's replaced slay?
Is it bet?
peak. It's peak. Peak is a
Peak.
positive one.
Peak.
Peak?
Peak. Not
Something
pee.
Peak. Like it's
Peak.
peak experience. Okay, now
Oh,
let me
no.
reel something in though. Dan said something really important, and I think that there are listeners who may not know the right questions to ask. You had a clear demonstration of a situation of manipulative kind of coercion, right? But there's a lot of people that don't necessarily know how to sort all that out, how to use Tim's filters that he just rolled out. Anybody listening can contact any of us at any time with those questions because you're going to have that come up and you're going to say, you know what? It kind of seems like too good to be true. I'm not sure how to sort this out. We can help you sort that out. We don't hide out from people who need our help. None of us do. On any day for any reason. So I want to turn it back to you. I have a coaching client trying to contact me right now, as a matter of fact. So
You do. Well, Julie, do you have a call? I mean, you can just text her.
I'll text her back. It's okay. We're good.
Okay.
I'll text
So
her.
the moral of the story is, and I think you guys, in case you've said this before, and I really appreciate it too. I'm sure Dan or Orlando and Chris would agree too. The environment isn't just your physical environment; it's your mental environment, it's your spiritual environment, it's your educational environment, and oddly enough, the more myopic or tunnel vision you have in terms of focusing on fewer things, not more things, but then surrounding yourself with people that are going to reinforce those goals, that is harder than heck to actually emulate because it's so confusing, especially in real estate. Casey, this is an interesting question. And Dan, for you, is actually, I already know Dan's answer. But when you got into the business, were you very clear on what your goal was going to be? Did you know you wanted to build a profitable business? Did you know you wanted to be rich where your money works for you, you no longer work for your money? Or was like, how clearly focused on becoming, wealthy were you?
I was very encouraged and I was very encouraged with I want to make a lot of money to bless my family, my people around me always, but didn't have a very clear goal because I also like I came onto a team at Remax and it was super like I didn't realize how corrupt it was because I was naive. And I also came from a family business. So like very different world than coming from like a different corporate business, or you know what I mean? So I think for me, I didn't have the opportunity for somebody to put a fire under me and encourage me to have more bigger goals than just kind of keeping me in a box and keeping me as like a little bottom feeder. And so for me, I wasn't as clear until I realized some of the corruption. And I had another agent in the same office come to me, Maddie Rayton, who I love. Shout out to Maddie. She's the one that actually came to me and encouraged me and said, Casey, you're not too young. At the time I was 28. She's like, you need to build your own team. Everybody will come. And I was like, nobody would come. I've been licensed for a year. And she was like, no, everybody will come because you want people to win and you execute on things and you let your yes be yes and your no be no. And that's something that people aren't good at. And you need to like start building your own team. And so she was the one that really put the fire under me. And then I suddenly got clear once I met you and Julie and Dan and Carrie of like, okay, this is what real money and real freedom is. And that's when I really started getting clear with my goals and how much money I wanted to make, and not just money, but profit.
Well,
And
money's freedom, right? I mean, at the end of the day, Libertas, which is the name of our EXP revenue share group, means freedom. So, if in case you're curious, so freedom from all the things that having abundance of money frees you from. That's in essence what I'm hearing you describe. Dan, is that the same for you?
I mean, yeah, it is. I didn't get in the business full time. Actually, I had another job and was doing it part time to make extra money, and then it took off pretty quickly. So I quit my job after about 90 days and uh, sold 22.5 million my first year. But I was very money driven and still am. And I know some people might be listening. Maybe they're turned off by that, but you want to be led by a money driven person because if they can't create it for themselves, they're not going to be able to help create that for you.
100%.
Tim, you think about, I don't know if you remember, like I feel like you both encouraged me. Like I was coaching lacrosse 6 days a week, doing trainings while also building my real estate business. And you said, Casey, you have to lock in. You have to make a decision of what you want. And coaching was like rewarding, but that was like a labor of love and ministry more than like actually putting food on my table and paying my bills. And so the moment I locked in and listened to you and took a chance and unplugged from promised income that was like also peanuts. I I dedicated the 30 days. You said it would take me 90, it took me 30, and I just started exploding because I locked in and like stopped focusing on too many different things and juggling too many different balls in the air. And I think that's really important of what you just said. Like other people have other jobs and a lot of agents can resonate. Like you start out doing other things and or maybe some of you started out with a silver spoon in your mouth and your parents were brokers and you just had things handed to you. Great. That's awesome. But a lot of agents don't. And so the agents that don't and that are listening, it's totally possible if you lock in and have the right systems and people like Dan, Carrie, Julie, and Tim telling you to do it and showing you how to do it and keeping you accountable during those 30, 60, 90 days, whatever goal you set once you unplug from your other side jobs. So I think that's also really important to share because that's where I was. If you remember, I was 6 days a week training, and you're like, when are you going to quit?
So
And
The fact
I'm,
is
I,
that you did it, though. That's the
yep.
difference, Casey, is that you did it. You were flexible. You decided to let go of those things. You didn't wait forever. You didn't hit the pause button and say, well, we'll just see how the next 6 months goes. You said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to be coachable. I'm going to take Dan's and Tim's and Carrie's advice. And I'm going to give it, I'm not going to wait 90 days. I'm going to give it 30 days. I think that that's something that is important for our listeners to know is that the market is changing quickly. There are outside forces, AI being the most obvious one. There are things that are changing. You've got to be innovative. You've got to take action. And for you to wait or think that you can reinvent the wheel, I wish that I had all of the greatest ideas. I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel. I'm going to look for people who are like minded, who are also motivated. And to Dan's point, it is okay to be money driven. Why are you in real estate in the first place? Casey, you said it so you can bless your family as a result of the things that came from real estate. So that's what I was thinking about. I mean, but that's the thing is that, Casey, you took action. You didn't wait.
Yeah.
So, I mean, every market removes certain advantages and creates new ones. The agents who grow are the ones who adjust faster than everyone else. And this is the other thing I'll summarize from today's show is AI is about to make every agent's systems look impressive. So the real advantage shifts back to human skill, judgment, trust, and real estate conversion. So stay tuned to Powerhouse Talk. We're going to have our other two co-hosts back on next week, hopefully. In the meantime, we love any feedback, any show ideas. You guys can message us over on Instagram, but also we are encouraging all of you to take seriously this opportunity to partner with all of us at eXp Realty. The links are down below. You can directly communicate with any of us. Our cell phone numbers are there. Please text, don't call. And you can read more about our eXp Realty group. We offer, as a group, over $40,000 worth of additional, training, coaching, all the things, in addition to what eXp already offers, which is extraordinary. So learn more about our eXp Realty group. And again, it's called Libertas. Click the link below, learn anything, learn more about us individually. We are ready to go. So guys, great show. And I'll see you next week. And have a great week. Be safe.
Bye.
Bye.